Joining us today is Sai Ramachandran, a man who swapped spreadsheets for satire. He's a software coder turned stand-up comic, a TEDx speaker, and the author of Humor Science. Whether he's performing at comedy clubs in Bengaluru or training CXOs on how to be more engaging, Sai is on a mission to prove that humor is a superpower for connecting. Sai, thank you for being here today.
Bartosz and Michelle, I'm super happy to be here as well. I'm so excited that this conversation is happening after our previous conversations online. So this is good fun for me. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to see where we can take our audience.
Yeah, thank you, Sai.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Thank you. Look, let's jump straight into it. As your introduction states, you've gone from coding to humor. What has led you down that path? And could you talk to us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Coding, I mean, as you can tell from my name and the way I look, I'm an Indian. So software and computer science was something that, at least in our time, was something that you just graduated towards. You either you're a doctor or a lawyer, less lawyer, at least where I'm from, less lawyer, more doctor or engineer. So I went to engineering because I had no energy and strength to be a student for the next 20 years of my life to become a good doctor. So software engineering was it. And even within engineering, computer science was where all the smart kids went. And I thought I was smart, so I decided to go towards computer science, which is what I started off as. And I grew up in a very small city, so we didn't really have too many options of doing anything other than these two lines of work. I did that for about, I would say from 2000. I mean, I've been writing software code and stuff since I was in high school. So call it 93, 94 until about, say, 2023. So what is it? 7 plus 30 years. I did a lot of that. But then I got bored of it because it didn't feel that I was doing the thing that I was put on earth to do. I know it sounds very big when I say it like that, but it's not like that. It's more like I just didn't enjoy software after a while. So I stopped and I tried to do something else. And one of the reasons I chose comedy was a confluence of two, actually. One is that I had wanted to talk about some of the things that I think society needs to hear. And I also realized that the easiest way to get there is to do it as a comedian, because people are more willing to forgive comedians and they don't take them as seriously because you can say whatever you want and either they ignore you because they think you're just a comic saying stupid things, or they listen to you and think they're hearing a secret that nobody else gets. So it's a little bit of that. So why I went towards comedy is that. And the second reason was that even as a kid, when I was in school, I used to be the class guy who used to, repartee and banter with my teachers and stuff like that. Yes, I wouldn't say clown. I hope I wasn't being laughed at and not with. So there's a bit of that. Yeah.
So you were naturally already funny and had that in your toolbox.
My classmates you have to ask my classmates if I was funny, naturally funny.
Is that how you were described?
Sorry, what are you saying, Michelle?
Is that how you were described?
I don't know if I was described as funny, but even now people do remember. When we have our own WhatsApp group for high school friends, they do remember me as the sort of quick-witted guy. And I do remember one incident, which I'm very proud of. In fact, I've written that in my book as well, Humor Science, that this was, I think, 10th grade or something. And we had one of our teachers had taken a day off that day. And so our English teacher had come to substitute. And he was playing a game with us during that substitution class, that he put up a few titles on the board and he said, I'm going to ask people to, it's just one sentence, okay? And you had to, pick you to maybe tell a story about the sentence written on the board. So the sentence could be anything like, Mary had a little lamb, but they had to tell a story about that. So one of the lines he picked me for was World War III fought with sticks. And he wrote sticks as STICKS, as in the usual word sticks. But then I had interpreted that as STYX, the underworld thing. So I was like, oh yeah, this is the humanity fighting against the underworld and the netherworld, all those things. So I want to say I was quick-witted, but again, you'd ask other people. I shouldn't be the one saying, yes, I'm quick-witted, I'm clever like that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, what did the mornings feel like when you were a coder? I mean, what did you start to resent, and when did you feel a change just had to come?
To be honest, from the beginning, from 2000, say roughly 2000, I worked for a few months in 2003 and then 2005 onwards after I finished my master's. I never was excited to wake up in the morning and go to work. I used to do it because I used to work at Goldman Sachs, and that one place is where there's a lot of highly skilled, highly talented, highly driven people working in that company. So you, just by being around people like that, want to also be at that level. So I used to go to work early, 7:30. I'd be at work along with everybody else on the desk and get stuff done. And we used to be cracking at work throughout the day. So those things used to happen, but it was very artificially imposed. It didn't feel that I was the one interested in getting up and going out and doing my work and getting my software completed and delivering it to the traders so that they could make more money. It didn't feel any of those things. So that feeling of inadequacy, of not being happy about where I was, has been there for a long time. But it tipped over like soon after we had our kid. Our son is a COVID baby. So by the time like 2023 came around, 2024 came around, I was realizing that I didn't really enjoy it. And there were two times when I was in a team where I didn't really feel that I was contributing anything to the team. And that the most recent time of that was 2023, when I was part of a team where I was hired as a senior architect, but I felt that the team already knew what they're doing. And I didn't really have to do any actual work to help them make architectural decisions for software, any of those things. So I felt I had a lot of free time to think about what I was wanting to do. And I realized that just doing software isn't it for me. And so I guess that feeling of inadequacy has been, or insufficiency of my work not aligning with what I want to do, has been there for a while. When you're young, you also have to make money. You have to create your foundations. So a part of the practical decision I made was I'll grit my teeth and get through it. And when I'm ready to make the plunge, I'll have enough of a cushion to do it. And I think we'll talk about this later also, but I think that's the trajectory for me. I didn't want to do it, but I did it because I had to do it. And then I decided not to do it.
But it's also a pretty big thing to walk away from, because Goldman Sachs, that's what you would have, or people would have aspired to be working at a place like that. And you're there and you're working and you're realizing it's not fulfilling. It's something you're just doing day in and day out, like a grind, or Groundhog Day even.
Right. Walking away is the charitable way of putting it. I got fired, but this was sorry.
You got fired. You
this was around the financial crisis. So 2008, I survived. As in, I made it through the 2008 crisis. But 2011, there was another dip in the market. And at that time, they laid off a bunch of people as well. So I was one of the people. I mean, our team was anyway getting downsized. And we were, so our team, the team I was part of, had been creating the trading systems since 98 or something. So it was an acquisition by Goldman. And I had been part of that team. So that work was sort of stable, and it was ready to sunset that product and come up with a new product for trading. So, and I didn't really see a place for me in the team, I guess. But yeah, it was something that people look at as a destination. Goldman Sachs is one of those places where many people just go there and stay there because that's it. I mean, once you made it to Goldman, you're done. I have some friends, in fact, who are from my cohort of people who joined Goldman Sachs in 2005. They're still there. This is 21 years of being at Goldman. And in this day and age, people don't stay at a job for more than, say, 5-6 years. And these guys have been there for 20 plus years. So it is a good place to go. But yeah, that rug being yanked from underneath me was actually a trigger for me to actually decide what I really want to do. And I moved from there to a proper software company, and I continued in that road for about 10-12 more years, but then I decided it was not for me.
So all of these obviously challenges, you spoke about breaking down problems before they break you down. Can you tell us a little bit about your process and how you do that?
It's going to be a little situational to explain how the process works, but I mean, as a software guy, as an engineer, that's how you train to think. You train to break up a problem into smaller pieces and see how can you combine things in different ways to come to a solution. Let's pick. I mean, I might have mentioned this elsewhere also, but let's pick. In India, we have a big problem of traffic not following traffic rules. It's just the way it is. If you're driving in India, that if you can survive driving in India, you can drive anywhere in the world, I think. So one of the things people do in India is they go the wrong way on roads. So even if you have a road which is going forward, you'll always see people coming the other way because they need to, I don't know, they need to get somewhere
We've
faster.
seen it. Yeah.
And it's just something you get used to. But then if you think about how to solve that problem, I mean, one of the things that the US has on the shoulder of the road in the US, when you're driving on highways, there'll always be these ruts on the road which are there to keep you awake. So if you're driving and you start drifting into the shoulder, you go over the ruts. And when you go over the ruts, your car starts jarring and it makes this noise which wakes you up. That's the idea behind that. So I was thinking, and this is an example of solving the problem. Like, how do you solve the problem of people going the wrong way in India? Create those ruts on the road on the left side of the road, because India drives on the left just like the US. I mean, sorry, just like Australia and England. Make the ruts on the left side of the road. So when they're going the wrong way, they have to go over the ruts. Otherwise, there's no way they can otherwise they'll have to go into the traffic. So you put the ruts and then hopefully it'll annoy them enough not to go the wrong way. So that's just an example of solving problems. When you're an engineer or when you had that training, that's all you always end up doing. You're always looking at a problem and saying, okay, here's the problem of people going the wrong way. What do I do about it? So to do it, you have to give them incentives not to go the wrong way. How do you give them incentives not to go the wrong way? Either you enforce it through cameras and police officers like stopping them and issuing them tickets, or you create, and you can't obviously scale that because you can't have police officers on every road. It's impossible. So what you end up doing is creating a physical solution, which is the ruts on the road, and hopefully that'll work. So when I look at a problem, it's always you start with the problem that you have, and then you try to answer it in the best way possible. And then you realize, okay, this answer is good, but it has all these scale limitations or limitations of finance and budget, or there are other limitations, like physically you cannot do something because it's just not feasible for a human being to do it. And then you start digging down and you come up with a solution. And then most of the time people ignore you because they don't want to hear these solutions, because this is implementing the solution is always going to be a bigger problem than letting the problem go on. Those things do happen, but that's how I do it. I start with a problem, find the first solution. The first solution is always, it's not going to work. So you always find a second solution which works a little bit better, and then you keep iterating on that.
So that's breaking your problem down into smaller sections rather than trying to deal with it all at once.
Right. So we have so in Bangalore, like where we live, we have a WhatsApp group of people in the community who are really concerned about things like, like people going the wrong way and traffic being so difficult during rush hour. It's almost impossible to get out of where we live because there's so much traffic going to, and all the IT parks are near us. So everybody's going through those roads, and those roads they were built for a certain amount of traffic, but they are like triple the amount of traffic. So then we have all these conversations about how to manage it. And most people have solutions which are like really, you've got to they put more cops on the road or invest like millions of rupees on traffic cameras and issue tickets. I mean, those don't work. I mean, they won't work for the same reasons it hasn't worked so far, because you cannot have cops everywhere. You cannot have the means to install cameras everywhere. And even if you have cameras, you have to solve everything. Everybody's license plates on their vehicles have to be perfect, so that when you read the license plates, you can tell who's riding that vehicle. Then all that stuff has to happen before the solution starts working. So you solve it in a slightly simpler way through ruts on the road.
So with the problem solution, and with being able to see how I guess some of the challenges exist in our society, how do you I guess apply that to some of the projects that you're working on now?
The first thing that I have realized is that we're too comfortable in India with just being. We're not doing enough to challenge the status quo. So how I'm applying it to my work is that my goal for becoming a stand-up comedian and to do professional speaking is to be able to talk about things that are not much talked about, simply because there's a lot of inertia. Like, we have a good thing going, as in many people in Bangalore work in IT, they have a good salary, they have a good lifestyle. They don't want to rock the boat too much because if you are going to become an agitator on the road protesting against, say, public safety, protesting for public safety, if you become visible, your company is going to be like, why are you on the roads? Why are you not at work? So that's the first question they're going to ask. It's a fair question. So people don't want to do that. So the first thing I'm doing to actually implement or to work on the problems I see is to talk about it, to make people understand that these are problems that we have to solve. These are things that we're not doing correctly as a society. We're not giving enough support as citizens to people who are doing the work, there are so many very good people in Bangalore who are speaking about, say, better civic infrastructure and better following of the laws that have been written. India makes amazing laws. If you look at the laws in India, they're at par with the laws of the world. For example, maternity leave is amazing in India. Then right to education for children, then data privacy. All those laws are A+. I mean, you cannot, any country in the world would be proud to have laws like they have in India. I mean, obviously there are some exceptions. You'll have some, this is one thing that would not work in Australia maybe. But in general, the laws are top notch. But the implementation of those laws and the following of those laws is very, very questionable. It's fully moth-eaten and it's all holes everywhere. So talking about it and making people who are in that comfort zone of being middle class, safe, employed, have a mortgage to pay and a lifestyle to live, getting them out of that comfort zone and saying, you know what, you need to talk about this, because if you talk about it, then politicians will listen. Society will realize that it's not just the problem for poor people or for rich people, it's a problem for everyone, because the middle class by definition constitutes what, 60-70% of the population, because that's how, I think you don't define it as you define it as 60%. If 60% of the population is not talking about it, is now starting to talk about it, it's actually a problem. So change that has to happen from the grassroots has to start from the middle majority talking about things, which is where I am right now. I find myself in that space, like at least I'm not leading any movements. I'm just speaking out. And I think that's giving people that feeling that if this guy who lives with us in our apartment building, he's middle class, he's just a regular guy like us, if he's speaking up, why can't we? I mean, I think that's the only thing I can do. I can't do more than that, but I think that's a good start.
Yeah. So what's motivated you to be the one to speak out and to make this? Just wanting to see a change?
That my wife asked me this question again and again. Why you? Why don't you just shut the hell up and live?
Why not
It's just
yeah.
I think it's just the way I am. I don't like stuff not working properly. Maybe it's the engineer in me. It's the
very logical side of you.
Like why would we not try to fix things if we can? Like, why not leave the world a better place than we found it? It's again, I make it sound big, but it's not. It's on in my day-to-day, I'm not doing anything big. I'm just saying that this needs to change. This needs to get fixed. Yeah. And
why not you?
I want to take a little bit of a detour into something which I've noticed.
Yes.
And I don't know if you want to put this in the podcast or not. If you do, then fine. If you
go for it.
Yeah.
So back when I came back to India, this was 2017. Narendra Modi was the prime minister, and he was very popular. He's still pretty popular, but there was a lot of fear in society about talking about him. Like, can you criticize anything he says? And because he had made it so that his people, his cadre, his workers would shut down any debate, any conversation about him. They just bully you and then harass you into not speaking out about him. And it bugged me a lot in the beginning. Like, how can I live in a country which has a tradition of democracy and be so afraid of talking about Narendra Modi? And I used to do that from the beginning. I was like, my wife and I, she used to be a little afraid, but I used to just go out and say it. Like, not to friends, because you can't, your friends are not your friends because you want to talk to them about politics. They're friends because they're friends. But outside that, I would make it a point to just speak out. If, for example, in the WhatsApp group, if somebody said, Modi is doing this great thing, and I'm like, I don't know, Modi is doing this great thing, but he's also doing this awful thing. So I did that for about, from 2018 onwards. I got married in 2018. So 2018 onwards. And off late, in the last 2 years, since his last re-election, I've been noticing that there's a lot of vocal resistance to the idea of Narendra Modi being a very successful and a capable prime minister. There are questions are being asked. I don't want to take credit for it. I'm not saying that I created this ecosystem in the country.
You added to it.
Yeah, you added a little bit of my own fuel to the fire, my little voice. Yeah, so I think that's how I am. When you ask me why you, I don't know. It's just me. It's just how I am, that I don't want
You're
to
not
just
be quiet.
Yeah. Would I give credit to my school? I think I would, because we grew up in a very small city called Jamshedpur, and I went to a missionary school. And I think from that moment, from being in that school, all of us in that school had this chip on our shoulder that we are better than everybody else. So we had this I think we had this feeling that we owe it to the world to speak out and be leaders and all those things that drilled into us. I think that's what it is. But again, I'm not a psychologist.
What is this? What sort of school was it that made you
This was a
missionary?
Catholic, this was a Catholic missionary school.
Okay.
So
what made you feel like?
What values do you feel helped to bring that out in you guys?
Yeah. What made you feel this way?
I wish I knew. I mean, they didn't say anything specific that that this is what you need to be as a student of our school. But it's just that maybe just because we grew up in a city where we're in a small city, and our school was, I want to say, the best school in that city, but I'm sure the other schools will complain. Yeah. So you have this feeling that you've been given that support and that feeling that you're safe to speak out.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's what it is. Like when we were in school, people used to, our alumni used to come back to school, and they used to say to us, that when you see other students from our school outside the city we are in, you'll immediately know that they're from your school, because it was just how those students carried themselves outside in their adult life as well. And I never believed it until I actually experienced it after coming out. I always felt that nobody else seems to want to rock the boat at all, and except the few people I know from my school group who are still doing it. So yeah,
it's a great skill to have, and like you say, I think it's instilled in you, and I think it just needs to be done in a certain way to have the biggest impact. But it's definitely needed in society, I think, as we go forward. I mean, how else are you going to change things, right? But I obviously I'm hearing a lot of passion. I'm hearing a lot of need to serve, to contribute to your society. Obviously, a lot of that passion then drives a lot of these various ventures that you're involved in. As we've mentioned, you're a TEDx speaker, you're a stand-up comic, you've written your book. Do you feel that you model, I guess, stability with being in as many ventures as you've taken a part in, or do you feel you're modeling freedom?
This question is less for me and more for my wife. Obviously don't want to change, she's an adult herself, but I think the question is more for my kid. What's he seeing? He's seeing a dad who's doing 10 different things, and he's so what's he going to take? I want him to take the fact that you don't have to stop at being interested in one or two things. You can be interested in 100 different things at the same time. There is no rule, there is no life policy that says that you can only be interested in say whatever you're interested in. You can be interested in a dozen different things. You can be interested in civic affairs, you can be interested in current affairs, you can be interested in media literacy, you can be interested in arts and science, anything you want. So whether I'm modeling chaos or whether I'm modeling creative interest, I mean that's probably going to be up to him. I don't know. But I always, you always, they say that you're never your father's son. You want to be the opposite of your father. And in my case, it's very true, because my dad was an extremely stable person. He worked in the same job for decades before retiring. We lived in a small town, and he's never wanted to live anywhere else. And now he lives with us, near us in Bangalore. But this was a big change for him to have to step out and leave Jamshedpur and start living close to us in Bangalore. So he was the model of absolute rootedness. It just wasn't him to go anywhere and do anything else. He's eaten the same food for years, for decades. His schedule for the day is exactly the same. He wakes up, he has 1 cup of coffee in the morning, 1 cup of tea in the evening. Then he eats rice at night for dinner. Everything nothing's changed. If you picked him up today and took him back 20 years and dropped him, then he'd be living the same life. There'd be no...
Very structured.
Yes. Maybe the only difference would be that now he loves watching YouTube. Back then there was no YouTube.
You've introduced him to it.
Yes. And that's been a mistake. My mom still regrets buying him the iPad.
But hopefully you can watch this as well soon. Sorry to interrupt.
What are you saying about this?
Hopefully you can watch this as well soon.
Maybe, but I doubt it. He loves politics. He's not going to watch all this stuff. I'm not my father's son, and I think that's been something more or less conscious in my head, that I don't want to be like my dad. I love him. I respect him. I respect a lot of his decisions that he's made for us as a family. I think if I could be half the son, half the man that he was in those spaces, I'd be happy. But other stuff, I've modeled my life opposite of my dad. Like, if he stayed in one city, I've moved to at least 10 different cities. If he kept one job, I've changed multiple jobs. If he had one interest, I've had multiple interests. So I'm hoping that my son is a choice. He interacts with my father on a daily basis. He stays with them every hour for a few hours every evening. So he sees his grandfather living life a certain way. He sees me living life a certain way. Now he has to choose which way is he going to choose. And
he could be himself.
Yeah, he could be himself. Yeah, but I think at least for, and Bartosz, maybe you can correct me on this, but as a guy, you always have the decision to make whether you want to be modeling yourself after your dad or you want to do something opposite of your dad. There are the only two choices for men. That's what I can see it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, no, you're 100% right. I think sometimes you take the things you like or you think that you like, and then you change the things that you maybe think you could do a little bit better. Whether we do them better or not is ultimately probably for our kids to decide.
Right.
I agree with that. As a woman.
I'm sure as a woman, you have the same, Michelle, you must be having the same question. Do I want to be like my mom, or do I want to be my own person or different from my mom?
I personally would do what, like Bart said, I'd find the things that I found were working for me that I think, I could use. And then the other things I wanted to do differently, like it just isn't the way I was going to be. And I think that comes down, like I have two sisters, so there's three of us, and I feel like we're all different. And then yet we can all be also similar. So,
So your mom probably looks at you three and says, I'm a little bit of me is in all three of them. So together, you created me.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And, like we have two kids as well. So I just look at how they are. Like my son would sometimes be so like me, but then sometimes so like Bart, or even my daughter. She's a complete opposite of everything I like. There's things in her I admire, and she's my kid. So yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I want to know, Sai, a little bit more about your comedy stuff. So you got into comedy, like you do stand-up comedy. This obviously came from you being not the class clown, but being funny in school. So tell me a little bit more about that. How often do you do that?
So I aim to do at least 3 sets or 3 performances every week. It sometimes doesn't work out. I try to do at least 3 every week. Off late, it's been a little bit slow because I'm starting an art school, which is going to launch in April. But I try to do at least 3 performances every week. One of them can be online because there are a few online shows that happen on a weekly basis. But the other 2, I try to make it in person. That's the cadence I've wanted to keep, but I don't. But how I write comedy, maybe that's something that might be of interest, is that you have to give yourself work every day, because comedy, either you're a Netflix level performer who's lined up performances for the 2 performances every year and you're good, in which case you don't have to work every day. But for people like me, you have to go every day to do a little bit of work. You give yourself work to do. And my task for myself is to look at the newspaper headlines every day. And I look at the newspaper headlines and I try to find something funny to say about that, or some aspect of it which is not always obvious in the first glance. So that's a little bit of an exercise I give myself just to keep that creative energy going. I write down all that stuff. I have a notes in my notes app. I have a document running on a daily basis. Here's the headline. Here's how you read the headline. Here's how you add to the headline to make it slightly funnier. Those kind of things. So it's a very solitary pursuit. You on your own. You have to give yourself things to do. You have to give yourself those cadences that you have to perform on a weekly basis, and you try. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, no, doesn't matter. Your audiences change. The kind of people who listen to your jokes change. You cannot always ask for a certain audience, because when you're out at a show, the people in front of you are not going to be people you ordinarily address. They're young kids who have come to Bangalore on a school trip or a college trip, and they're there to have fun. And they don't want to hear some of the political stuff that I want to talk about. They might not. You don't know. But then you also take the feedback from the room, and you know that some jokes will work with a little bit of more tweaking, a little bit more work. So it's like
Yeah.
you're kneading the dough of your humor and adding to it, subtracting from it. You keep massaging it so that it's better and better.
And has this, I guess, passion for comedy and for speaking what let you down to TEDx talks and conference closeouts?
The TEDx was actually there's a story behind this. So last year in India, there was this comedian called Ranveer Allahabadia. So he's pretty good. He's very good actually, and he said something stupid on a show, like something ridiculous. And it was completely inappropriate for the show he was in. It was like a podcast that he was in with some friends of his, and he said something really ridiculous about incest or something. It didn't go over well. People were really upset about it. And right around the time that he was making that comment, I had been invited to perform at a company called Biocon, which is a pharmaceutical company. And it was for Women's Day, or it was a 45-minute show. That this is my first big break. My first time I was about to actually go at a big corporate like that and perform for such a long time, for 45 minutes. And right after the negotiations had started and I'd said yes, and the person I was talking to had said yes, the CEO of her team, her group, said that, no, we cannot have this guy, because what if he comes and says something that similar to what Ranveer did? What if he is the company that I was supposed to perform in front of? They're a pretty conservative company. It's a large pharmaceuticals. You can expect them to be a little careful about their image. They didn't want to have anybody on stage who would rock the boat, so to speak, and say something which would upset their employees, and it would put them on the news for the wrong reasons. So I was kicked out and said, no, we can't have you, simply because the atmosphere now is not good. People don't trust comedians anymore. That's what I was told.
Okay.
And this was in say February, March last year, something like around this time last year. And until then, I'd not done any TEDx, not written a book, nothing like that. And it really upset me that I was being taken and judged for something I couldn't control. I'm not Ranveer Allahabadia. I'm not a comedian who's going to go and make stupid incest jokes.
You don't even have anything to do with him.
Right. But I was still being judged for that by the same lens as he's being looked at. So I wanted to present myself as a person who, again, back to that first principles thinking, if I'm going to be taken to, or if I'm going to be pulled, called to perform at an event, I want to be judged for who I am. And the way to be judged for who I am is to create visible content that people can consume and understand who I am. So the book came from that feeling of being kicked out for something I didn't control. The TEDx came from that as well. Like, I wanted to be like visibly working at a different level than, say, Ranveer Allahabadia or other comics. For them, it's their bread and butter. That being controversial, being visible, being talked about is how they make money. They make their living. They earn their fan following from that. But mine was not like that. I'm not at the level where I can create a fan following by being controversial. So the only way to actually get in front of audiences is to be as trustworthy and reliable as possible. And the way to do that is through a book and through TEDx. So these two came from that. So last February, I was kicked out. By the end of February, I'm going to finish my book, and I wrote a book. Then I started reaching out to TEDx folks to find a spot for myself, and I got the spot pretty soon. In June, I spoke. So it came from there. There was no big. Sorry?
How often do you do that, the TEDx stuff?
It's a one-off. I mean, I've done it only once. I have interest in doing it again, but this time it probably won't be comedy. It'll be for something else. I don't know what it's going to be on, but hopefully something not comedy.
Okay. Okay, I have a question for you now. Based on that, do you think your old self would respect your current self or judge him?
That's a great question. Would my old self respect my current self? I think I would. I mean, if I were looking back to when I was in, say, 2000, let's say 10 years behind, so 2016, I've made some decisions since 2016, March 2016, which I'm proud of. Like, I'm proud of today, and I'm proud of, even if the outcomes have not been stellar or whatever, I'm still happy I made those decisions for myself. And I didn't give in or just survive. I'm happy about those choices, and I'm hoping that the person who seeing me from 2016 in 2026 is happy the same way, or at least mindful of the fact that these decisions were made, which were unexpected decisions in hindsight, but at that time they felt like the right thing to do or the easiest thing to do. Did everything work out? I mean, I'm not going to say everything worked out and I'm super happy. I mean, obviously there'll be some things I want to do different and some jealousies that come up when you see other people, for example, at Goldman Sachs, who are super successful and they have 21 years at the company and they're managing directors there and making a bunch of money. You do feel, did I make the right choice or not? But in general, I don't think I have any regrets today for having made those choices.
I mean, you could always go back.
I don't know if I will. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So you've made the right choice.
No, yeah. In fact, my sister keeps asking if I want to take up, say, offshoring work. My sister lives in the US, so she's asking if I want offshoring work. And every time the conversations comes, it's like, oh yeah, there's this money you can make, and the hourly rates they can charge. Yeah. But then it's just satisfaction is not there. So do I want to go back and do it? It's always this this feeling of inertia from my side.
Yeah.
So I've started to trust that inertia more after choosing to follow the inertia and respect it. I've started to trust it more. So that's a big improvement on how I was before. Like if you ask me whether I respect myself, earlier I used to be afraid of trusting my inertia and feeling of I don't want to do this. But now I'm a little more comfortable with that. So
I think that's a great point, Sai. I think I'm a big planner. I like to plan the day out, and I'm big on routine, probably similar to your dad. And I like to have ideas and plans where I'm going to be, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years down the track. And those plans don't always pan out the way that you had envisaged, personally, anyway. And lately, and I resonate with what you just said there, Sai, because lately I've been following that, we can call it inertia a lot more. I call it a gut feeling, or I just call it the flow of life. Sometimes you have an idea about what you want to do and a way that you want to do it. But sometimes you just kind of have to allow things to kind of work themselves out in a certain way, and opportunities can come from anywhere really, because it's kind of like life saying to you, have you thought about doing it this way?
Right. Sorry, I'm just going to plug in my laptop once again.
Yeah. Go
every time we talk to something like this, that I have to plug in my laptop.
But yeah, look, while that certainly is a new experience for me, to then go ahead and start listening to I guess my gut feelings and being more open to where solutions and opportunities may lie. It feels like you've had a little bit of experience in that field now, Sai. How was that shift for you, going from I guess more of that structured approach to more following your inertia?
First things I should say is that I'm super happy, and I'm really, really mindful of the support I've received from my wife. We have a kid. I keep having to remind people of that, but we do have a kid, and it's a thing that you have a kid, you have responsibilities, but she's been super supportive of the entire decision. So that's one thing that I'm happy about. I'm grateful for that she's there to not second guess and undermine those decisions and keep questioning whether it should be done or not done. She's an assistant professor in economics, so she's again one of those academics who like structure, and for her to just let go and say, you know what, do what you need to do, what that makes you happy, must have been a big change for her. So I think from just that, I can sense that when you're the person making those decisions, it's easy because you're the one who's jumping in feet first into a new situation. But she's the one who's still on the ship. She still has to manage everything. She's still watching you make that decision. It's not hers to control. So it's from a person looking on perspective, who's like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? There's so much more stability and safety in just going with doing what you were doing before. And I think that is the thing I should call out and acknowledge that I've received that support, and I'm lucky for that.
I think that's amazing. Yeah. You couldn't do what you're doing without a support, especially when you've got a child, like you said.
And it's not like it's always been, oh yeah, you do what you want. There have been moments and weeks when we've questioned the decisions. We've had those arguments about whether it's the right thing to do or not. The course correction has been suggested and discussed to death. Those things and those moments when the question comes, that's when you realize how much not being questioned has helped you. Because, for example, if I were to ask you, if you guys were on a hike, okay, you guys are going towards, I don't know, from wherever you are to some other place in Australia. I don't know the names of cities in Australia, but I'm assuming you're going on a hike. And then in the middle of the hike, I ask you, are you sure you're going the right way? Just the fact that I'm asking you that question is going to make you question the decision to go in a certain direction.
Yes.
You know exactly where you're going. So that's exactly what happened to us. There are days and times when we have those doubts. And when you are faced with that doubt, like my first thought at that moment is, why are you not supporting me? Why are you questioning me and undermining my self-belief?
Yeah.
But then I realized, I mean, that's what else are you going to expect from a person who's not doing the decisions? She's not acting on those decisions. She's just watching you make an ass of yourself from her perspective. So that was huge. Like that realization that the support I'm getting is critical, is big. But Bartosz, to answer your question about what it feels like to follow your energy, it feels good. It feels really, really. You don't doubt yourself as much because you know those decisions you made, good, bad, working, not working, they came from a place where your emotions were telling you to go. So you don't feel as bad when things are not working out. And that when you must have read books about creativity, and you must have heard about people wanting to encourage creativity in schools and follow your passion in schools. It sounds very hokey and very what does it mean to follow your passions? To me, it just means knowing that if you make a decision based on your gut and it doesn't work out, that passion will give you that opportunity or that idea of where to go next from there, which being in a job or doing things which are you're not passionate about will not. It is hard to describe, but let's take an example. Do you guys cook?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Good. So if you are making a dish then you try it for the first time while it's getting prepared, you try it for the first time and it's not working out, it's not tasting good, you always have other ideas on what to do with that dish. Like, I can add this, I can remove this, I can salt it more, I can season it less. You have some concept of a plan of where to go in case things don't work out with cooking, right? Because that's where you're at. You've decided to cook, things are not tasting good, you have an out for it. That's how life is for me right now. Like, I'm cooking something, it's not working. I know I'll be able to find an out for it as soon as I reach that dead end where things are not working for me. But this was not how it was when I was working in a job, when I was doing something for the paycheck or to build my cushion, so to speak. So that's the difference between then and now. The confidence that I'll be able to find a way out comes from knowing that I'm happy about doing what I'm doing. So that's
And is it that you now know or have the confidence that you can find the way out because it's your decision to make, as opposed to in a job when you have to do what you kind of told to do?
Fair enough. Yes, it is that. And in a job and in a when you're doing something that you're not passionate about, you can't you end up using a lot of logic to convince yourself to do something. And you also, since you're debating against yourself, you also know exactly the holes in that logic. You also know exactly why that logic is actually not the complete thing, right? So that is one thing that it ends up undermining yourself. Like, you know that you've convinced yourself to do something that you don't feel like doing. So you also have those other things which you can say, you know what, you told me that if I did this job for 6 years, I'll have enough of a nest egg to actually do what I want to do. But then in 6 years, the market might collapse. So what was the point? Or in 6 years, you could have started something today, which in 6 years would have been as successful. So you have all those counterpoints also in your head. You're just ignoring the counterpoints for now because you are convincing yourself to do something. But the counterpoints are there as well. For everything that you're saying.
Sorry, no, you continue.
So the counterpoints are there as well. So you let one side win, but you know that the other side could have won as well. Given a certain different set of arguments, the other side could have won. So at least in my head, that's how I am. Maybe more people are stronger headed than I am. They're more like able to separate their two arguments, the pros and cons, better than me. But I always know when I'm doing a pros and cons of anything, I know what the cons are, I know what the pros are. I'm letting the pros win for some reason, but the cons could have won in a certain different circumstance as well.
Personally, what I'm hearing though is that it's like when you're doing it for different intentions, to be happy is one, and then if you're doing it for means like, you know, money, like obviously we need it, but that feels like where the difference lies.
Right. So being happy, if your reason for doing something is to make yourself happy, you keep seeking that happiness. So you know that if I do something else, it'll make me happy. So you know where that happiness, the beacon for the happiness lies. You keep orienting yourself towards that. So I think that's what it is.
And money, we're justifying what we're doing. So like you said, you see holes, but we justify it, even though we know we're there, because we've got a different, you know.
And just to add to that, I'm thinking in the background, and yeah, following inertia, following your gut. You have to be personally in a space where you're free to make those mistakes, and you're free to try out a lot of different avenues. And if we could quickly talk about, I guess, the economic pressures of adulthood, and in a professional space, I guess, for many people, those decisions, and rightfully so, for the organizations and for the people involved in them, are largely data driven, because we need to know with certainty that our actions will yield a certain result. In our private lives, definitely inertia, that there's a lot more bandwidth for following inertia and our gut feelings, because there may not be as many economic pressures. There might be social pressures that are with friends or families or neighborhoods, but not necessarily economic ones. So looking and thinking about that, what are your thoughts about economic pressures in the workplace and working with inertia versus logic?
I'd be misleading you if I said that the inertia, economic pressures were not there. There was the stress of knowing, not knowing where the money would come from. But luckily, like I said, I did a bit of work in the beginning. I did the dirty work of building up my nest egg initially for the first 6, 7 years, 10 years of my career, so that I could survive on that. But if I stayed on in the US, for example, that money would not have taken me anywhere. I mean, that money was definitely not enough to survive for the rest of my life without any income, so to speak. So the pressures are there; they're real. You cannot ignore them, but you need to work. You need to know what you want more than anything else. Like, if you want to follow your passions, and if it means having to give up first world life in the US and come back to India and live in a small city like Jamshedpur, or move to Bangalore, Mumbai, all those things. If you have to do it, you have to do it. And that's what I did. I mean, my choice was very simple. It is simplified because I was an Indian citizen, and I knew the US currency was much stronger than the Indian currency. So my money would travel more in India. So for me, the choice was simple, but not everybody has the same choice. They might not be living in a country which has the same exchange rates as India enjoys with the US. A lot of small things worked in my favor, but the consciousness of those things working in my favor was with me at all times. I knew that I had a family home I could go back to initially. I didn't have to start spending on rent on day one as soon as I came back to India. I knew that after marriage, my wife had a steady job, and I could find employment in Mumbai. And I did that for a few years. I'm saying I didn't like software, but it's not like as soon as I came back to India, I gave up software and started doing something else. Even after coming back to India for a few years, I did software for 6, 7 years after that. So this recent change of being a comedian, being a writer, being in the arts, being interested in other things outside technology and software is new. So I came here, I was able to make this clean cut only after everything else stabilized. So I'm going to say that to anybody who's in that same mind space, that if you want to get out of what you're doing, you need to be aware of where you want to go. You need to be willing to make the sacrifices to put you there. And even when you're there, don't expect that the minute you get there, you got to start running and making a name for yourself in that new industry. There will be a lot of journeymen. Like in stand-up comedy, I am definitely not even the top 500 comedians in Bangalore. I mean, there are Bangalore's full of comedians. There's some very good comedians who made their name from the Bangalore circuit. I am still making my name. I'm still getting out there. I don't get called. I have to put myself, I mean, whenever there's a call for comedians, I have to put my name out there. And most times I get ignored because there's somebody else who's better, who's more aligned with the event being planned. So I'm doing the grunt of it, the grunt work of it, of being a comedian is still there. The drudgery of having to go and perform every couple of times every week, the drudgery of traveling to that place, especially in Bangalore with the traffic, all those things are still there. You will still have to do all those things. It'll not magically become fun because you're doing what you always dreamed of doing. Even in your case, Bartosz and Michelle, you guys are talking about, say, a podcast about breakthroughs. The drudgery of finding a guest, the drudgery of finding time to record an interview, the drudgery of doing a pre-call to understand what the other person's about. Those are just dirty work. It's just the unsexy work.
We love it.
And that people need to realize that the unsexy work of your dream career is still going to be there. The unsexy work is in your software job, in your day job. The unsexy work is in your fun job, in your dream career as well.
Yeah.
Are you willing to go through that unsexy work to get to the fun work? That is the question that people don't have good answer for, at least initially. And until you do it, you never know it. And
sorry, I just have to say, I think you're spot on there, Sai. I absolutely love what you're saying. I think, I two things there. One, I think in life, you do have to find your passion, your calling. I mean, as I say to many people, to many guests, is that, life quite often is challenging. And it's about those challenges that you can bear. Your challenges will be different to mine. And as long as I'm happy to as you say, in this case, the drudgery of finding guests, having pre-calls and pre-recordings, if those things are exciting to me and to us, then that is our calling, that is our passion. And I think just going back to economic pressures when following your gut or following your inertia, I think there's a real confidence in there as well. I think at the end of the day, there's a nugget of inner strength that I think a person needs to find to say, I'm going to take that leap of faith and everything's going to be okay. I think there's a big element to that. And I think in many ways that is a personal, obviously, journey of self-discovery to kind of get there. Or you just get to a moment where you just say, well, look, enough is enough and something's got to change, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever reached that moment of enough is enough. I mean, I could have continued where I was, and I don't think I would have been maybe I've been unhappier, but I don't think I would have done, my life would have been much different from where it is now. But what I'm trying to say is that you get there, you make your way there. You don't ever, in my case, I didn't just take a leap of faith. It was still considered. It was still a considered choice to make. I still went through the process of collecting my funds, knowing my exchange rates, knowing how I'd start, where I'd end up, still doing the work of knowing where I want to go from this point onwards without blowing up my savings and being left on the streets. All those things are still there. I'm still making extremely rational choices about where to go. And I don't want anybody to discount that. I mean, you can just take a leap of faith and go for it. But I don't think anybody should be doing that, because if the safety net
it's an informed, I guess, leap or move forward.
Right, exactly. So take your risks, hedge your risks. I mean, you're not going to be like, even Warren Buffett. I mean, I'm sure even today, though he invests in the billions of dollars in companies, I'm sure he takes very informed risks about the balance sheets of the companies he's investing in. For example, that art school I'm starting, it's a big investment from a personal standpoint. It's like in the tens of thousands of dollars from a personal standpoint. But we made that decision after looking at the balance sheet of the company whose franchise we're taking. It's not like we just simply, I love the arts, I need to do it. That need was there, but it was tempered with full research into what the company has to offer, whose franchise we're taking. What does it look like on day one when you open doors and ask parents to send their kids to that art school? How many students can you expect in month 1, month 2, month 3, month 12, month 24? You make those. If you don't do that research, then a fool and their money are soon parted. No, it's like that. You will get parted with your money, but you don't do that. You do have a dream and a passion, but in my case, at least, that passion and the dream following has to be with that understanding of what that path looks like. I wouldn't encourage anyone to just take a leap of faith.
I feel like as well, you followed your gut, your intuition or your inertia, like you said, but it's obviously in flow, because when you've gone and done your research or you've gotten sort of approval, like that something is about to work, it's meant. Have you done that where you found that there wasn't that backing, like things weren't going to work out, so you've now got to go in another direction? Or did you just keep persevering and finding that somehow or another?
Absolutely not. I'm not the persevering kind at all. I'm not the kind who will push through and do something which is not working, at least initially. So I like to follow what I call the green shoots route. So if you see green shoots of progress in a certain direction, go. And if you start feeling inertia in that direction, stop and do something else. Like, I'll give you an example. This art school we're starting, has been a culmination of a lot of thought I've given to having an event space in Bangalore, so that I could do my own events, I could do my own stand-up shows, I could have stand-up nights over there, and make that part of the cultural scene of Bangalore. But then I looked at the numbers and I realized that it's not going to work out the way I want. I need to still be able to earn a living to support my family. So just an event space was not enough. So what do I do more? A skills school would be useful, but then there are other stuff that I need to get through. How do I find teachers for that skills school? How do I do the marketing for it? How do I do the branding for it? All those things, I don't have the skills to do it, but I didn't know where to get that help from. That is how the past 1.5 years has been, of knowing I want to create an event space, knowing that the way to do it is through a skills school, but not knowing where to find the teachers and the branding for it or the market research for it. I didn't know all those things. At the same time, my wife and I, we like to eat healthy. So we created a healthy foods product that we wanted to bring to the market. Happily, the good news is that the healthy foods that we're building, my son's school has become our first customers. They ordered our cookies for the first time recently. But again, that's progress. That's a green shoot in the direction of supporting healthy food and creating or supporting this healthy foods brand. But I also know that I can't scale it up. I can't invest thousands of dollars of money on a kitchen producing these cookies which are healthy for my kid simply because one school asked for it, right? So I'm not going there because I'm finding the inertia there. I'm not willing to invest the tens of thousands of dollars to create that kitchen. Instead, I'm going to a place where the momentum, the movement is easier. I know I can rely on this franchise brand to do the market research, to do the development, and also to source teachers from, because they have multiple branches in Bangalore, so they will send the teachers to me to teach the kids. So I don't have to do the work of finding teachers. So though it's the interest was still there in the event space, the way to get to that event space was, in my case, through a franchise of an existing brand, which was after realizing that I can't do certain things, but if I got those things done, then this would be successful for me. We hope.
And will you still use that event space to have so it's an art school, like you said? What sort of arts will you be teaching, like comedy?
So there will be public speaking, so not comedy itself, but public speaking. And so this mostly targeted at kids and teenagers, so it's not really grown-ups. So there's public speaking, there's vocal music, there's instrumental music, there's painting, drawing, all those things, and dance as well. So it's about 5 or 6 disciplines that are going to be covered over there, and chess. So kids, off late, I think after Netflix did that show on the Queen's Gambit or whatever the thing is called, chess has become very popular in India. So all the kids want to play chess.
Very good. And I'm just curious. You mentioned following green offshoots and inertia. I guess my counter challenge in that statement is, what happens when the school comes up against obstacles, and there are inevitable obstacles which stop, I guess, displaying a lot of that green offshoot opportunity. What are some of your, I guess, tools to overcome some of those challenges?
So I've been thinking of the obstacles. One of them could be the kids in that. So let me give you an example. Schools are heavily reliant on word of mouth. If parents don't have a good experience with their kid in your school, they're not going to recommend you to anybody else, and you're going to fail. Even if you have the best brand name in the world, you're going to fail because the parents didn't have a good experience. So one of the things I did upfront was to ask the franchise partner, the main central team, for permission to brand. So how would a school lose reputation if a kid was, say, left unattended in a bathroom in one of the other franchises, or there was some allegations of assault? Well, those things can happen and you can lose your reputation, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm doing to protect myself today is to ask the central team to allow me to put up a small little blurb under the name of our franchise, saying this is an independently owned franchise, so that the taint of some other location making mistakes does not reflect on us. So so you have to think about those reasons why you could fail and try and mitigate them as best as you can. You cannot obviously mitigate everything, but you've got to try. So this is one thing we're doing. We're making it independent. Then the other thing is that we want our name to be, just our location to be visible as well. So initially, all the videos that people put out from this franchise of different locations on Instagram and other places had only the name of the franchise and not the name of the location under the franchise. So what we've asked the franchise partners to do is to put our name under the name of the franchise. So say the franchise name was Apple Music. So it'll say Apple Music Whitefield, which is where we live, Whitefield. So it'll say Apple Music Whitefield, which now you know that when the visibility, when the Instagram posts go out, they'll know, okay, there's a location of Apple Music in Whitefield, so we can go there for our kid. So those are the things you do. You do your best. And if some certain situations arise which you cannot control, the big ones you take care of, like your school losing credibility because there was an assault case on your premises or somebody else's premises, and that reflects on you. You create that I'm an independent franchise. I'm not part of this. What happened there will not happen here, or does not reflect on us. Those kind of things. If the location does not have good market, the catchment area is not good enough, that's a risk. So you have to invest more in marketing and outreach. Bangalore is heavily sensitive to traffic. So one of the things we could do in that case is provide shuttle service from different locations in Bangalore to our location. So you have to do those things. You have to think ahead. But we're not willing to spend money on a van service or a shuttle service yet. But it might happen that if we find that nobody's coming to our location simply because it's difficult to get to because of traffic, we'll have to find a way around that. We'll have to maybe create a shuttle service or change the timings of our class so that we are offset from the rush hour a little bit. Those kind of things we have to do.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
No, I love that, Sai. It certainly paints a picture of to me, seeing purpose in your life and following that purpose in your life with passion. And I think, as you've just described, even those challenges, if you are operating in the space of passion, of something you genuinely feel a strong pull towards, you will energetically and almost inherently and intuitively overcome those challenges. Now, look, it's been a fantastic episode and the first one, and I'm so glad that you were the first guest on our little venture here. And we started off on public speaking and comedy and conference closing. And I'm just wondering if you'd like to take the opportunity to close us. Conference
closing.
Oh man, this is going to be
just freestyle it.
So conference closers, their job is to put a bow and a wrapper around the event. And usually what I do in that case is I'm just sitting there observing what's happening and then closing it out. So what do I do now? How do I close out this conversation? So Bartosz and Michelle.
Yes.
So okay, let me try. So what I really appreciated about the fact was how candid and curious you were. You didn't push me too much. You didn't have your own agenda to narrate and guide me towards. So I appreciate that about the way you carried out this interview. I thought it was really thoughtful of you to have that pre-call and have a proper, well thought out, well articulated point of view that you had, that you brought to the table, and I was able to share my views, and then we came up with a way forward for the both of us, for the three of us. I think that was really nice, and I think that's the way more interviews should be held, this way, where there's thought, but there's also a little bit of freedom and a little bit of willingness to go where the guest wants to go, and also at the same time have that primary end goal that you have in mind to also navigate towards that. So we end up somewhere in between. You don't actually go in either direction. We find some middle ground which works for both of us. I think that's a really good way to do it. I'm happy to be the first person you consider on your podcast, and I'm hoping there'll be many, many, many more successful episodes, and many more amazing guests that come and talk to you. You guys have something special going on, and the chemistry between the two of you, it's palpable. I mean, even during the call, I messaged Bartosz separately after that it felt good to talk to people who, they're not the over the top, we are made for each other like that. You just supported each other and supported the guest so nicely that I felt comfortable, and I felt eager to come back and do this episode. So I think you guys have something special that you're building. Yeah, all the help you can need, you ask for, I'm willing to help.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been so lovely to have you as our first guest, and you also made us feel really comfortable. So that was a beautiful way to close.
It was a great blend of the journey of life, and as we've talked about, like following your inertia, coming from a professional space where you started, into the amazing space that you now exist in. So look, again, I'd like to thank you so much again for approaching it, for coming on and having a conversation. If people want to reach out to you or be in touch, what's the best space to do that in?
It's sairamachandran.com. That's my website.
We'll put that in the notes.
In the notes.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
So much.
Thank you. And hopefully we can do a part 2 and then continue on and find out how the school is going and how all the ventures are holding up over your end.
Would love to. And if you guys come to Bangalore, you always have a place to crash or a place to hang out at.
I feel like we're going to make a trip very soon then. Yeah.
We'll have to.
Please do come. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
1, 2